Live. We are live. What's up,
We
my
are
man
live.
Trip? How you doing, my brother?
What's going on, Ray? How you doing, bro?
I am chilling. I am chilling. We are on the inaugural edition. I call it take one of the Cool Breeze show. And you all ask, what is the Cool Breeze show? Well, it is the culmination of, I think, months of us having discussions about music and the culture that we love, and our desire to finally put it on wax, put it on tape, so that we can have it for posterity, and also hopefully we can actually engage in some broader discussions with folks. If not in real time, then even over social media after the fact. So we're excited to be here tonight. I am Ray, also known as Neosoul One, and this is my boy Trip. So I thought it would be good for us to give folks a little bit of a background on who we are in terms of why we are doing this show from a music perspective and from a cultural perspective. So I thought I will go first, and then I'll let you go, my man Trip. So
All right.
again, I, I am Ray, and I have been enthralled in music and with music since I was a little kid. I had younger parents, and my parents would play the best of R&B and gospel, and even some pop when I was growing up as a kid in the '70s and in the early '80s, and I loved it. I was enthused by it. I would do things like try to check out what the latest and greatest was in terms of new music coming out. I would look at the charts. I would see the charts that you would see in the back of the Jet magazine in terms of which song was number one for that particular week. And I would find that very interesting. But most importantly, around 1978, 1979, as I came into my own as a very young man, preteen, I started to listen to hip hop music. I started to listen to what we would call the birth of hip hop, at least in the mainstream, because obviously hip hop started in the early '70s. But for me, it started in the late '70s. I got to hear it. I got to access it on the radio. I got to access it on something known as Video Music Box, which was hosted by my man Ralph McDaniels. I got to actually access it as part of my daily life and culture. Growing up in Patterson, New Jersey, I must say I live in Dallas, Texas now, but I grew up in Patterson, New Jersey, which is about 30 minutes due west of New York City. If you take 30 minutes due west of the George Washington Bridge. So I got to live the music because it was about me when I would walk down the street. Brothers and sisters would have the boom boxes, and we would all tape, various music that we would love to hear. Unfortunately, hip hop at the time and rap at the time was relegated to on the weekend nights. There was a show that I grew up on that was called the Mr. Magic Show, which initially came on a different channel, different station, and the name is escaping me right now, but became more popular when it came on the WBLS 107.5 in New York City. And I used to listen to the Mr. Magic Show. And I think it started on Friday nights initially or Saturday nights initially. Then I think it went for the whole weekend, and then it just kind of blew up. It became obviously its own format as time went by. But that was my initiation in terms of having a passion. I always loved, even before that, I was into R&B. I was into disco because obviously that was big at the time, and I was just listening. I was into some even pop music at the time as well. But so when I talk about my love of music, that's kind of the roots of it right there. I should also say that I have a gospel tradition that I draw on as well. I spent 4 summers in North Carolina with my cousins. My cousins all were part of a group called the Williams Gospolettes. They would sing every Sunday at various churches, sometimes two or three different churches. Um, uh,
You muted, Ray. You muted, doggy. All right, Ray's on mute. We're gonna let him catch up for a second. We see him moving, but this is live. Live is live. So
All right.
there
Am I back?
we heard you say every Sunday is what we lost you.
All right, cool, cool. Sorry about that, my peoples. So like every Sunday, yeah, my cousins would be singing at various churches, sometimes two, three different churches, and I would go follow them around, listen to them, and so definitely, part of the gospel tradition as well. As the '80s went by, I just got more and more into hip hop and rap. I got into what was happening with Michael Jackson, what was happening with Prince. But my mainstay was was hip hop and everything. You had obviously Run DMC coming into LL Cool J, going into uh, groups like Houdini, uh, groups like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, groups, lesser known groups as well. Was it the Funky Four Plus One? You had so many different groups coming out of New York City in various boroughs and even in New Jersey as well. That were really a big part of my tradition. Now, I'm not going to go into, I could go from a timeline, but I just wanted to kind of set the stage in terms of the roots that I wanted to kind of lay a little bit. So that's some of my roots. I obviously love all of '80s music. I love the '90s music. I love 2000s music. But one of the things we're going to do on this show is that we're going to compare and contrast. We're going to talk a little bit about some of that roots or the roots that we come from, and then contrast it to some of the more contemporary music that you hear, or contemporary versions of hip hop, for example, contemporary versions of R&B, contemporary versions of even gospel, possibly contemporary pop, and kind of compare and contrast to what we did and what we heard when we were a little bit younger. Now, I know my man Trip is a little bit younger than I am,
Not
so
much. Neo Soul One. We would be remiss not to give them a little bit of your background on Neo Soul. You got
well,
go.
yeah, that's an excellent point, man. I'm glad you pointed that out because I was really kind of just giving folks my roots in my hip hop. So I will give the roots in my neo soul music, and because it is a passion of mine, I actually use it as my moniker, right? So why not mention it? So back in the '80s, neo soul, quote unquote, had not been created at that point. And I know that neo soul was just kind of a marketing term that was created in conjunction with some of the artists around the mid '90s. But I like to say that neo soul has some strong roots in the '70s and the '80s that became stronger and grew taller in the '90s. So I look at groups and I look at styles of music from the '70s and the '80s. I call them antecedents to neo soul. So one of the groups that you'll hear me talk about a lot is Loose Ends. It's an R&B group out of London, coming out in the early to mid '80s, that had a string of hits, from "Hanging on the String" to "Stay a Little While," "Child," to a whole number of others that if you look, if you listen and you go back a little bit, you'll hear. I think there's some strong roots from neo soul right there. I think some of the music that folks like Stevie Wonder did, Earth, Wind, and Fire did, are honestly antecedents to neo soul music. I think that there is a whole group of songs that you might see, but coming into the '90s, folks, man, I tell you, I found my sweet spot when folks like Maxwell came out, when folks like Erica Badu came out. And I was like, oh man, this speaks to me. This speaks to me because it hits me where I love the old neo soul music from the '70s, but it was on a little bit of a jazzier, a little bit of a smoother tip, and something that I could relate to a little bit more and identify with a little bit more than some of the more, I would say, bluesy R&B and from the '70s, and um, some of the music that you think about when you listen to some of the black exploitation movies, and that funk component of it. Don't get me wrong, I love it on its own, but it was something that I kind of I liked a little bit more of a smooth kind of feel and imagery as well. And so groups like I said, artists like Erica Badu, artists like Maxwell really spoke to me. But I also say another antecedent to neo soul music is Sade. Her style, her writing, that group really, I think, were really kind of setting the ground and the stage. Another group who I would love to, that I'll refer to quickly, and again, we'll get into this at a later time as well, is Jeanne. And so they precede
You broke
a little
up.
bit. What's that?
You broke up. That name
Oh, I
needs to
broke
be
up.
heard.
Okay, yes. So another group that I would like to say that kind of is an antecedent and is kind of part of the roots of neo soul, even before the term had quote unquote been coined, is Jane, and that's spelled Zhane, and it was amazing to me because they were produced by KG of Naughty by Nature, and straight hip hop, producer, and but he came out with this whole style that was kind of a redo of soul music, smoother tip, a little bit of dance infused as well, but also hip hop infused, jazz infused, and you'll hear that all in Jeanne's music. But again, I consider them as part of the birth of neo soul as well. So again, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of those nuggets as part of my background. Lastly, I will point to the fact that I was actually a producer, have been a producer since the early '90s of R&B, of some rap music as well. In the mid '90s was my sweet spot. Uh, Took a break late '90s, early 2000s, got back to it mid 2000s, late 2000s, and haven't been really at it actively recently. But nonetheless, I have to mention that because that is part of the reason that you'll hear some of the things and some of the projects that came out of that work, the producing work, is part of why I am doing this today. And so, with that, I'm going to move on to my man Trip. Trip, tell us, my brother, tell us a little bit about your music background.
All right, so I'll start off with first how we got here. So Ray and I belong to an organization, and at one of our conferences, we went to talking about music in the lobby. And
Yes.
I realized I met my match, right? Like we had a whole debate in the lobby of topics, and we're just jumping down all these rabbit holes. And normally, with my musical background, I can drown you in the deep water or hop into rabbit hole, rabbit hole, rabbit hole. You can't keep up. This man was two steps in front of me, right? So I'm like, okay, this brother knows music, and that was the connection. So my background, man, I come from a musical family. My brother was in a funk band when I was a teenager. It was a popular funk band in Florida. They had a couple of little songs that charted locally back then, at local charts. But my personal thing, I grew up in church, so I had that gospel background. And then rap was born. I'm a few years younger than Ray, but I was pretty much born with rap. So by the time I was in my teenage years, that was the beginning of the golden era of hip hop, or just before it, right? Run DMC was on fire. They were the biggest thing in the world. And that was my preteens. So I grew up on that Def Jam stuff. But I'm a South Florida boy, unlike Ray. So we got all that stuff a little bit later, but then we infused other things. So I also grew up on guys like DJ Magic Mike, and then the early Two Live Crew stuff before Luke. MCADE, where dance music came out of. A lot of stuff based off of Mantronics out of New York and Kraftwerk, those groups. That EDM and that drum and bass sound, AD is like a god in that. He started off right here in South Florida. And then when I was 15, I picked up a mic because I started freestyling in the neighborhood and kind of got a little bit of a reputation. And so I was a battle rapper, quote unquote, right? For whatever that was worth. And when I moved to North Carolina, I lived there for a few years, and that's when I got into gospel rap. Now, that's where I actually did some shows. I did shows in Atlanta, I did shows in North Carolina, I did shows in South Carolina. Usually on the undercard, but so a couple of big venues and a couple of big audiences, a couple of main lines with a few thousand people on a couple of occasions. So I got that bug in me. Went off to FAMU for undergrad, and I just kind of retired that part of it. Right, I would still do battle raps on occasion. I would still jump into battles if they had them, but I didn't really write. Didn't perform. Certainly got into the gospel rap scene, but I stayed in music. But my musical taste is kind of eclectic, right? So I have a alternative rock background I'm really into. I have, this Fiona Apple torch type of thing I'm really into. Um, but at the core of it, there were always two genres that I couldn't shake. Hip hop is in my blood. It's who I am. It's the rock, the metal, the independent stuff. It's tangible to it, and it often incorporates it. But hip hop is the main bloodline that I get my oxygen from. Uh, that in neo soul. So to this day, I'm not the biggest R&B fan. Unlike Ray, I'm actually a bigger funk fan, but I'm not the biggest R&B fan. I'm a huge neo soul fan, and as we talk about it, I'm happy to distinguish the two. Uh, Although some artists these days blur the line, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about: old versus
Hmm.
new.
Yeah.
But artists like her, how do you qualify her? But I'm a Principal. He's unqualifiable. So, and you want to speak
Yeah.
on people who originated in neo soul, to me, Prince was one of them as well. I would definitely say Loose Ends, Grace finally got me to come around on that because I listened to more and more from this, and then I heard Loose Ends and Sade, and you could say Britain kind of came up with the genre. But you need songs like When Two Are in Love, Adore from Prince to kind of round that out from that era. No Prince, you probably don't have D'Angelo because he copied a lot of Prince's textures and harmonies. No Prince and Maxwell sounds a little bit different. He copied a lot of Prince's vocal tics and vocalizations. Not to say they wouldn't be great, it's just you could tell there was an evolution of that style. But yeah, look forward to having some heated, spirited discussions. Also, some very interesting discussions and learning from it. Like I say, this brother knows his stuff, and I know how to talk. So we should have a good time on this. And yeah, let's
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah, yeah, we're excited about it. And one of the things we want to do is kind of engage with our ultimate audience. And this being our first show, I'm not sure how big our audience is going to be, but at some point, we'd love to connect with you guys with respect to some of the social media platforms that we're engaged in. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention that we are kind of powered by, sponsored by a platform that both of us are really involved in and really are really passionate about, and that's a platform called Neosoulcypher.com, and it's a place where we have essentially put into practice our love and our passion for classic hip hop and neo soul music. So you'll find a lot of content that we have both written and others have written regarding artists that are from all eras of the genres we have just mentioned. You hear us talk a little bit about their releases, about their concerts. We'll do some reflections on what they did back in the day and what that means today. You'll see all that on the website, plus a connection to what we call lifestyle components and online community components as well. And so we're very excited to be a part of neosoulcypher.com, but we also want to point out that this is a little bit of an offshoot from it in the sense that we want to be connected to the platform, and so you'll find all these shows that we're going to be doing. They're going to reside on neosoulcypher.com, but we're separate and apart from some of the other things that we're doing there. We do want to explore in some other ways these genres and some social and cultural issues and how they all intersect. And so that's kind of what you'll hear and see in conjunction with the show. Now, so today, what we thought we would do, and we think this is going to be fluid over time. There'll be other things that we talk about, from movies to TV to books, etc. But I think we're going to be
Sports,
kind of heavy. What's that?
even sporting events.
Yeah, yeah, sports too. Absolutely, absolutely. Because the intersection between all these genres and sports, you can't deny that. But there are three topics that we wanted to touch on tonight that we thought, would be a great jump off based on a couple of things on how we just kind of set up our love for these respective genres, but also just because of what's happening in the news and developments today. So the first thing we're going to touch on is of the untimely death of Michael K. Williams and what it means for the culture and what he meant to the culture. Then we would talk a little bit about what we would call our top three neo soul artists. Ooh, that's gonna be juicy right
It was
there.
difficult.
And then lastly, a topic that got me boiling. It got me boiling because I am on Facebook and there's this really really cool um, I don't know if you call it a site or some sort of almost mini blog on Facebook that's called the social media ecosystem, and I forget the gentleman's name who powers it, but he does an incredible job. So I want to say that first and foremost, the diversity, the depth, and the variety and the timeliness of all the content that he puts on there is amazing. I don't know how he does it, frankly. However, I have to point out that he did go down one rabbit hole that we're gonna have to address because he started talking about stuff like New York hasn't been relevant in the hip hop scene since the late '80s. And so we want to talk about that as kind of our last topic for tonight. And trust me, that's gonna be on fire right there.
I'm gonna
Um,
jump in for a second.
yep.
Neosoul One is a protector of all things New Jersey, New York when it comes to hip hop. So we'll talk about our opinions. I will start off by thinking I think he was completely out of pocket. But it don't hit me the way it's gonna hit Neosoul One, right? It's gonna hit him a little different. So you guys want to stick around for that.
Man, shoot, absolutely,
It's gonna get hot
absolutely.
in here.
It's gonna get a little hot, no doubt, no doubt. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Michael K. Williams, my brother. I'm going to go back to the beginning. When I first remember seeing Michael K. Williams was when I was a weekly watcher of The Wire. And for the younger folks, you probably have heard of The Wire, but you might not have seen The Wire. So The Wire was on cable in the early 2000s, and it was groundbreaking because right before The Wire, you had a show that was called The Sopranos, that was on that kind of, I think, was the initial show on cable on HBO that kind of broke the mold in terms of being a very realistic crime and family drama that really delved very, very deeply into the characters that were part of that universe. And they did an incredible job. Being from Northern New Jersey and seeing The Sopranos was amazing to me because I would see things on the screen of different areas and different landmarks, et cetera, different stores that I, pass by every other week or so. And so it was cool to see that. But more importantly, it was the show was amazing in terms of dealing into the crime culture, the mafia culture, and how it intersected with the daily lives of folks. Now, on the heels of The Sopranos, we had The Wire, and The Wire, somewhat in the same tradition, did a deep character dive into the characters involved in the drug trade in Baltimore, Maryland, and gave you just an unvarnished and an incredible picture of daily life of living in the ghetto in Baltimore, Maryland. But as interestingly and as a great contrast, showing you kind of how the police and the local government dealt with those phenomena, manipulated, those phenomenons, and you just kind of got an amazing view. And so, how did Michael K. Williams become part of that? Well, he was an amazing character that grew out of this show. He was called Omar, and so he was that rare dude who would hold up drug dealers and put them on blast. And so it was a very interesting character from that perspective. So that was my first introduction to Michael K. Williams and his character. And I think one time I heard him on the show. Somebody would, I don't know if he was being interviewed by the police, and they were asking him what his profession was. I think he said, "Well, I rip and I run." I rip and I run. And the way that he said it, man, you were like, damn, he rips and he runs. That dude is no joke.
He,
um,
he's a beast actor, first
yeah,
first and
yeah,
foremost.
Yeah, yeah, you got it because you feel, when he's on the screen, you feel, what he's feeling, and the power of the depth is tangible. So I know he's done some amazing things after that. I didn't really see him on Broadwalk Empire. I know that was on HBO as well. I did see him in the powerful performance in Lovecraft Country as well. Another character that complex, dealing with some demons and dealing with his sexuality issues and dealing with being a father. And dealing with this whole overlay of horror and civil unrest as well. So Lovecraft Country is amazing and only slightly second to The Watchmen in terms of how I feel about the intersection between horror, fantasy, science fiction, and social issues. But nonetheless, like I said, Michael Williams sorely missed. I'm sure you have a perspective on him too, Trip, man.
Definitely, and it's great. It's great, Neo Soul one, because my perspective is different than yours in a few ways, right? Um, my first introduction to him retroactively is when I realized, oh, that's the guy who did it. Was Bullet. He played one of Pac's henchmen's goons, and it was a pretty decent role for him. So those who
Sure
are
did.
familiar, he has a distinctive scar that runs down his face, and it's not a prop. So if you've seen him, you've seen him. But I am one of the few from my generation that did not watch The Wire yet. It is on the must-watch list this week. I am starting it this weekend. I did watch The Corner though. The Corner is the show that was a 3 or 4 series, and it's what the Wire came from. It was like a precursor to The Wire. It's based in
Yep.
Baltimore, St. and gritty crime. So I did watch that, but
Yep.
he's not in that from what I can recall. The guy from what's that New Orleans jazz movie that was about Katrina with Mike with Pierce? I forget the name of it.
Yeah, I remember the kid that's in
Tremaine.
it
He's
because
the guy
he.
from Tremaine's in it. And there's also a guy from Tremaine in The Wire as well.
Yeah.
Uh, but mine is from Boardwalk Empire. Chalky White.
Okay.
Chalky
Yep.
White. And he took that role specifically because he liked to play roles where we didn't just have these weren't just stereotypes. And in part, that was because of who he was. He had a pretty rough upbringing, you know. He was he talked about it. He was molested as a child. He had some questions about his own orientation. There's some questions as to what his lifestyle or preference was necessarily. He talks about how he used to hang out in gay bars a lot because he could be free there and from his drug. He had a drug issue, and he could be free from his drug issue. This was early in his career. That's where he got sliced at. Got into a fight with one of his friends out front and got cut in the face. He went
Yeah.
from being a guy that was picked on as feminine to being a hard dude simply because he has this huge scar running down his face. But it launched his career and he developed a skill. And like you say, the stuff he was doing now, man, the losses is horrific. You know, we lost a great one with Chad last year, Chadwick Boseman last year.
Yeah, man.
Role that I saw, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, is stuff that was one of the best acting performances I've ever seen. That didn't get an
Yeah.
Oscar. That's horrible. And now we've lost another just icon. You know, I mean, it's nice to have so much of his acting on celluloid, but it's painful to see these black talents and just getting there. They're starting to really spread those wings of artistry and
Yeah.
get snapped. Because he was at the point he could do whatever he wanted to now. You know what I mean? He's Chalky White
Yeah.
already, over already. He could do what
Yeah,
he
but I
wanted
think
to.
you say that, but there was something I saw recently where he was actually questioning where he was still being stereotyped in terms of his roles,
Believe
and so he had some concerns about that, and obviously I shouldn't say obviously I don't know what his cause of death is, frankly, but it's a possibility that he may still have been battling those drug demons, frankly, but I really don't know I don't think there's any stated cause of death, but we definitely wish his family the best. All prayers go out to his family, and we just we pray that he rests in power, and that the culture thankfully has some record of him and what he has done, and he will always, have that impact because of what he was able to leave for the culture. But it's sad to see him go so soon, as it was with Chadwick, man. And it's just
If you haven't
yeah,
seen any of
we've
his
had some loss.
performances, make it a point to go watch. Like I'm going to go watch The Wire. Go find a project that he did and
Yeah,
watch it. If you, it's not out of respect, just because the man could act. You're gonna enjoy it.
yeah,
I recommend Boardwalk Empire on that regard. And that was his such think about it, bootlegging in the 20s,
yeah.
30s, black man, and he played it with such a power, yeah, Chalky White, Oma, rest in power, bro.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So why don't we go ahead
Yeah,
and transition?
I'm not gonna go there, but there was a big issue with a hip hop tie-in with your boy 50, but we'll leave that alone.
Oh, really? You cut out just a little bit for me, so I didn't hear what you said. What'd you say?
50 got dragged by a lot of the hip hop community for untoward comment he decided to make with respect to the departed. But he did delete his message, so
I'm not surprised. That's.
not
I'm not
surprising.
surprised.
So petty.
I'm not surprised about anything he says or does. Unfortunately, I mean, basically,
Another
um,
talent, but
you cut out there for a second, man. What'd you say?
yeah, you did too. I think maybe it's my Wi-Fi. I'll say he's such a talent, but he doesn't. Sometimes he doesn't. He's just doesn't listen to doesn't read the room. So it was based on a beef he had with one of his friends, and
Right.
and so
Okay.
he used it as collateral.
Yeah. I think some people are so self-centered that they will never consider the thoughts, feelings, and the memories of others. Frankly, it doesn't matter because it's all about them, and that's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. That's the way some people be. Yo, my man Trip, man, you frozen on my end, my brother.
Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi was with you. It decided that it needed to switch to a different network.
Oh, I feel you. Okay, it's all
So
good.
it
It's
should
all
be.
good. Yeah, we're
No trouble.
leveraging we're leveraging 21st century technology, and oftentimes it works amazing, and sometimes it falters.
Yep, yep,
So
yep.
y'all gonna have to live with us as it relates to that. All right, so we're gonna transition a little bit to and I'm glad we touched on kind of our roots a little bit in terms of the music because this next topic is going to draw on that a little bit. Who are our top three neo soul artists? And this is a really, really, really hard one for me um, because there are so many, frankly, that I think that have contributed and who are impactful. But I'm just going to take it from this perspective. I'm going to take this topic from the perspective that it's about me and what I like, and why I like it. So that's why I'm just going to give my three, and then we're going to go from there. So again, from my perspective, my three start with first and foremost my favorite, Jill Scott. That's to me,
Just
she
from that.
Jilly from Philly personifies neo soul, the neo soul vibe for me. Her first album, was incredible, absolutely incredible in terms of being genre defining as far as I'm concerned, but also just connecting with you. When she said, "You getting in my way," and I was like, "Yo, homegirl, you better get out the way," because
She did. Now,
because she got some,
you talking
yeah.
your favorite three or the top three? What I gotta pick while I'm thinking?
Oh, so the way again, I took it this way. I said, look, I'm gonna say my top three,
Okay, okay.
um, and so that's the way I'm gonna take it. Because to be honest, I mean, you could argue you can have so many battles about who the top three are, but I'm gonna take it from my perspective. My top three are number one, Jill Scott, number two, Maxwell, and number three, Erica Badu.
Okay. The Holy Trinity.
Yep, the Holy Trinity. Well,
So
that's what I got. That's what I
you'll
got.
be mad at me because I think I only have one of yours in my top three.
Uh-oh.
So
Uh-oh.
the way I'm doing it, who would I listen to? Maybe two of them. So I'm actually debating it in my head right now. But I always call the four cornerstones: Jill Scott, Badu, Maxwell, and D'Angelo. For me, number one at the box is D'Angelo. That's the one that can't be taken off the list, right? Um, but lately, I've gotten into Max. But honestly, if I had to pick, it's gonna be D every time, right? So,
Okay.
and that goes easy. Um, Badu would normally be my second slot, but I'm going off the charts here, and I'm going to slide a young artist in. I am a her fanatic. I consider a lot of what she does neo soul. She is what I listen to the most right now, so I'm putting her in my top three. So that's why I had to ask her. We talking all time genre defining or just my favorite. So my favorite, I'm going to go with D'Angelo. I'm going to put her, and then y'all really don't think I'm crazy with what I'm listening to. Eric Benet is going to be my third. I just like that part.
Wow. Eric Benet. Wow. Okay.
I like that part. I
I
like the
can't
song. I'm taking
I
Eric
can't
in the
be
battle.
mad. I can't be mad at Eric Benet. Brother's got he's got some cuts, man. He really, really does. And I love his style as well. And he's a great performer. I've seen him before as well, so I'll give him his props. But in terms of him, you know, again being better than the three that I mentioned, I can't see it.
See, I ain't
But
saying better,
again,
right? Your
but
favorites,
but
right?
no, 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 no. I'm not mad at you, man. I can't be mad at you on that one. But my whole
You tell
thing
me
is,
out of those, who got the better ones for quiet moments? Because for me, Eric Benet got chocolate legs. He got just those slow jams. He got
yeah,
serious.
yeah, yeah. Although,
I guess Maxwell got
although,
that too.
yeah, I was gonna say Maxwell.
Maxwell might be the king of that. That's his category. He's an old category, Maxwell.
Yeah, man. Urban Hang Suite, dope,
Urban,
dope.
he don't miss.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
honestly, if I really, really had to do it, if you allowed me to stretch, I take Erica and put Sade in. But I just don't know if we can call her Neo Soul because she predates
right,
it. But if we let her
right.
in, she owns the club.
Yeah,
Talk about slow
she
up
might.
tempo.
I
She got it
mean,
all.
and all I can say, it is weird when people hear this from me. And I'll be honest with you, strangely enough, I mean, I've listened to a lot of music, obviously, but I haven't been to a lot of concerts. And obviously that's slowed down a lot since COVID. But but I have been to a fair number of concerts, and I gotta say that Sade is the best concert I've ever been to.
Which
And
one?
I know that. Oh, it's the one that was about. I guess it's 8 years ago now.
Oh, that last one was honestly,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh my,
I
oh,
mean, absolutely amazing. I always loved her, but I took a new level of appreciation. I was like, yo, she, first of all, you know, her style of singing doesn't accentuate range for the most part. Um, but you could see and hear the range. Um, and but just everything was on point. The entertainment level, the notes, the coordination with the band. I mean, it was just off the charts. And obviously, she's not going out there and giving you all these crazy dance moves, although she does, dance and does some great choreography. But it's the best I've seen. I mean, and I've seen a lot.
so
You know,
th- three. I'm trying to keep it to three takeaways from that event. First, John Legend was the opening act. Okay, that's all you got to remember. John Legend was the opening act.
right?
Sade is a band first. You don't get that sense when you listen. I didn't get that sense just listening to albums. You go to
Right.
that show and you realize the band is Sade. That
That is
drummer,
true. That
that
is true.
sax, that bass, they've been there with that lead singer from day one. The band is Sade. It's not just the entertainer. But
Yep.
man, like you say, she doesn't go out there. And I'm a guy, I grew up in a Pentecostal tradition. I like someone to sing. Give me Patty,
Right.
give me Fantasia.
Right.
She don't do none of that. And she captivates you so tight it's not funny. She does it quietly. Her dance moves are not on Prince fan. You know, he's all over the stage. She's so subtle, but it's so
Yep.
impactful. The woman can use,
Yep.
she's shadow, right? She's
Yep.
the erasure of light that makes it brighter, not the brilliance of the light.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
Sade is just, she's, oh man, and that show,
That's why people were getting so upset recently when folks were trying to compare Snow Allegra to Sade,
that's
and
not fair.
everybody was like, "Yo, come on now, come on now."
You're doing no favors there. There's one Sade, okay?
Right,
There's one,
right,
right? Like,
right,
we're not going to do that to
yeah,
Sade. I mean, the Snow like that. It's not fair. She's good, but we're not going to do that.
right,
Um,
yeah,
she could never. I mean, maybe she could, but it's just not fair. You're setting her up to fail. It's like he's
yep,
the next Michael Jackson. No, Chris Brown isn't. No, Usher isn't. But they're great. But when you do that to them, it's not fair, right?
yeah, that's right, that's right, that's right.
There's not going to be another Prince, you know. But there may be not be another any of these other artists. And Sade is uniquely unique in that genre. Now, that is
Yep.
the first thing I want to see. And I know this is off topic, Neil Soul one, but I want to see Sade and Anita Baker. Okay, that's what I want to see. Like,
Wow, wow, that would be something. Although I mean, and I love Baker, but she don't have the hits.
don't get ran
She
off this mic.
she
I think
she
you're
she
listening.
don't have the hits, man. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, you don't want to say we just made this is gonna blow up for all the wrong reasons now. But we can hate. Bring the hate to Neil Solomon's way. He just said Anita got the hits that Sade has. I am the
Nah.
Sade fanatic. I didn't say it. Trip, that wasn't him. That was Neil Solomon. We're gonna start with Regina. Regina, I didn't do that, okay?
Oh my goodness.
You might want
Yeah.
to check it because I was
Don't get me
shocked.
wrong. I love myself some Anita Baker.
Got a solid 20 right.
Um, but again, Sade is just she. First of all, she does have more hits. But secondly, just her style is just a little bit more in line with what I like. But I can't say. I mean, I love myself some Anita Baker. She's amazing.
See, I think it's one of those things where we forget, right? Because Anita was so they have the same body of work. I did a comparison to be fair. They had the same body of work, except Anita did hers in about a 6 to 8 year window, and Sade did hers over 2.5 decades. But they were sold about the same records. Believe it or not, it's crazy. And yes,
Hmm.
they line up hit for hit, number by
Okay.
number, and it's shocking.
Okay.
We just don't remember because it was then. But
Uh,
Auntie remembers. Aunties remember. And,
Aunties
and,
remember, right?
and Anita, and this kind of thing we're going to do, folks. He's going to bring up a topic, and I'm going to go all over the place, and he's got to reel me back in. But
That's
uh,
all good, man.
aunties are happy right now. They rejoice this weekend on Twitter and social media because another reason Anita's not talked about is her music was taking off. She was not platformed widely, and then earlier she told them, "Don't stream my stuff. I don't own my masters. I want
Right.
my masters back." She got
Right.
her masters this week.
That's right.
So I
That's
kind
right.
of almost expect them to do something. I love Sade would do it. She doesn't really like the limelight. She shows up every 10 years. She's like the cicadas, she just shows up and takes over. But, so I don't know if she'll do it. But, I
Yeah.
think that might be a mix I have to put together, right? I'm sorry, Neil. So it's one of the things that I didn't mention is Neil So One got me into trying to learn how to mix. He inspired me to buy a mixer. So I'm now a nascent person trying to mix stuff up. And
Yeah, oh, man.
I think I'm going to have to do Sade
And
versus
it's
Anita.
amazing when the student has surpassed the teacher by far,
No,
by
I wouldn't go like
far.
that. Man. I wouldn't go like that.
Because
Wouldn't
because
let
I
me
haven't been on those mixed boards for a minute, my brother. But I'm looking forward to getting back to it. And I got to underline that we've got a couple of great mixes done by my man Trip that are on neosoulcypher.com today.
That's
He's got
generous.
and
That's very
he's
generous.
got this incredible New Jack Swing mix that he did, and then he's got this incredible tribute to DMX as well, that you got to check out as well. So highly recommend that. And I'm not just saying because I know the brother. I'm saying it because it's quality stuff.
I'm
So
getting
I really recommend folks check it out. You will be using it over and over and over again. Now, I feel like we haven't really given this topic its due. So I feel like at some point we need to come back to the top three neo soul artists at another
oh,
at a later date, and we may
that's
want
a
to
show.
actually spend a whole show on it.
That's a
Uh,
show.
Yeah, I think it is a show, absolutely. So I don't want to give it short shrift, but I also want to make sure we get on to the last topic because I swear, man, it just gets
Here
me
come the
going,
heat,
man.
y'all. Here come the
It gets
heat.
me going.
Here come
So
the heat.
this brother whose name actually I think I remember, but I don't want to say it because I'm not trying to like cause like beef with any particular person because I think this brother by far, he does so many great things for the culture in terms of what he brings, in terms of the news and his takes, etc. However, I got to call out this particular take. And I know that this brother is based in Atlanta and does and maybe part of kind of the entertainment industry slash infrastructure ecosystem down in Atlanta. And don't get me wrong, I love Atlanta as well. However, to say that New York hasn't been relevant or hasn't been at the top of the hip hop game since 1989 um, is just disrespectful, sacrilegious, and needs to be called out for its factual incorrectness. Number one, and then just the poor taste. The brother got poor taste.
I'm gonna be honest. The part that got me, and I'm trying to find the note I sent you on it. It was bad to begin with, but then I saw him write. Here it is. Here it is. To be fair, New York had some acts. Jay Z, Wu Tang, DMX, Nicki, Ja Rule, 50 to hit. Some acts, he wrote Wu, the whole of Wu, and some acts. Wu is not a chapter in the history of hip hop. Wu is a anthology that you cover when you cover hip hop, like from the inception to the delivery. And I didn't talk about 50. I didn't talk about Jay. Some acts. Seriously, it invalidated the entire opinion of everything he had to say that I was a supporter of.
Yeah, and I think is
Five platinum albums DMX had.
yeah.
Some acts.
It just shows you sometimes people get caught up in the moment a recent bias, and they also get caught up on charts and sales and understanding how all that stuff. I mean, first of all, it could be manipulated. Secondly, it doesn't speak to quality.
Okay, but
Um,
but but who sold more than DMX, Nicki, and Jay Z?
and they're
Who?
absolutely, yeah. No, you're
So
right.
even if
You're right.
even if you go by sales, who sold more than them? I don't. Okay,
Yep.
I'll put it out there. Not the biggest fan of Nicki, just not. Have been. The woman makes bangers that sell. Period. Full stop. DMX,
Yep.
huge fan. Made a tribute to him. Every song was a hit. Swiss Beats was 16 years old doing stuff like Rough Rider, crazy stuff.
Oh yeah.
This article has an ignorance that I don't, the arrogance and the ignorance I don't understand. Listen, I am a strong proponent of Bomani's phrase. Bomani Jones has a phrase. He said, "The South won," and that's what but he's talking about music. I believe that. Now, I know we're gonna disagree on that, but I believe the South did win the battle. It's preposterous to say that New York had nothing all the way going back to then, or that New York isn't relevant. There's a big
Yeah.
difference between a
Yeah.
lot of acts that came out that developed the art form in the South, and New York kind of stayed stagnant or grew or just became more popular, commercial, whatever you want to call it. But to say that those acts were somehow less than or not as I could take every act out of Atlanta, out of the
Yeah.
South itself. They're not going to add up to the five names we just mentioned. They're just not.
No, 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 absolutely not. However, one thing I did want to do as well, because I was contemplating responding on that that thread that was created from this on Facebook. But last thing I wanted to do is to kind of create, the last thing I want to do with this discussion as well is kind of create this whole battle between coast and regions, etc. That I think is a false battle. However, I do want to make sure that people are smart about what they're saying, and I ain't saying stupid shit. I'm just gonna say it because that's just stupid shit right there. But at the same time, this
Ignorant. Ignorant.
yeah.
Not ignorant. Ignorant. I think that's what I wrote back last night. Ignorant.
It's ignorant, absolutely. Because even back in the '90s, where you had this whole East Coast West Coast thing, and I know it was kind of spurred by a lot of publications that were trying to get eyeballs in terms of what they're the Vibe magazine in particular kind of lit a lot of the fire around that. But you had some real disagreements and some real issues, and unfortunately, I think in some ways it took away from a couple things. It took away from my being able to embrace some of the music from the West Coast because I'm so busy trying to make sure that I'm protecting, what's happening here on the East Coast and vice versa. I think, people from the West Coast probably didn't embrace some of the things they could have been embracing from the East Coast. But as importantly, and as Andre 3000 said at the Source Awards, the South got something to say too.
Right.
And and the reality is that they had something to say back then, and they do now. And so I'm not here to say that Atlanta, the South, or whatever doesn't have anything to say because I honestly, like I said, my roots, my family, familial roots are from North Carolina, and so I identify with the South in many different ways. However,
Look,
to
look, great,
say,
great to that point. Walk of other sons, right? Isabel. If you're not a hip, and many of our hip hop artists are Jamaican, they are island. But if you're not Jamaican or island, your parents are. If you're North New York, you're most likely from North Carolina, South Carolina.
yeah,
That's what a train is.
that's
Virginia,
just the
North Carolina,
reality. Yeah,
they're in New York. So you go back 2 generations. If you were born in between 60 and 75, or 60 and even maybe 80, you go back. Your grandma's from probably someplace in Carolina. It's just
yep,
that simple. New York, if you're not
yep,
from the island. So
yeah,
yeah, of
yeah.
course we'll have those roots. Even the
Yep.
gangsters that the rappers rapped about, they were from what? Frank White, those guys were from
No,
Carolina.
no, absolutely, absolutely. But again, another show that we're gonna have to do on this platform is talking about the different regions of hip hop. And we're gonna have to break down. We're gonna do a show where we can compare and contrast the regions, but then we're gonna have to break it down. We're gonna have to do a show on on Houston. I was telling my wife who's from Houston, I was like, yo, when we do the show on Houston, you're gonna have to come on and then you're gonna tell me a little bit about growing up in Houston and when all this stuff was happening and stuff. Because it's just a wealth. There's a wealth of stuff coming out of Atlanta. There's a wealth of stuff
Houston
coming
doing
out.
it right now. The ladies are coming out of Houston right now. The
Oh yeah.
ladies.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, but getting back to this whole point, I
But
was just like, dude.
before you move on, we ain't gonna gloss over Miami just because you don't like booty music now. We gonna talk about it. We gonna talk about it because they doing it right now. That's what's up.
Yes, 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 yes. Now, don't get me wrong. First of all, I love South Florida. I love Miami. I feel
Like
like
what?
it is like my ancestral, second home for So I'm never gonna front on Miami. At the same time, Luke ain't my favorite. Just ain't my favorite. That's all I can say. You know,
I mean, but we got
uh,
Trina,
uh,
we got Trick, we got Trina, we got Trick, we got Rick Ross, Ace
You
Hood,
got
we
you
got
got
guys.
Khaled. You got Khaled. Khaled is doing his thing and has been doing his
Khaled,
thing for
Pitbull, and Pitbull and Florida on some whole different stuff, but they started out doing hip hop.
for more than a minute. Trick. Yep. You got Trick. You got um, you
Trina,
know
Trina, surprisingly, Trina to the point with Eve. I'm sorry, to the point with Sade and Anita. Trina versus Eve. If you didn't see it, you'll be shocked. Trina won that by all accounts. And you couldn't
really.
tell me she had 20. She got more than 20. Like, it's just one of those artists you just didn't realize was on this. Well, she took more of the Jada Kiss approach. And we got to do a whole
Right.
show on that one day, too, just versus her. Wow. Like, young New York guys got killed by them boys from Yonkers. I'm just going to tell you.
No,
Them boys
I
big
think
bucks.
well the thing is people from New York consider that all to be New York.
I
Just so we're
know.
clear, that was
The
not
boroughs don't, though.
the Yonkers. What's that?
The boroughs, I never heard them consider Yonkers
Oh no,
part of
no,
that.
no, no! Absolutely, man. The Yonkers is part of New York City. I mean,
Okay,
technically it is not, right?
all right,
But it is culturally. The
okay.
Yonkers is definitely culturally part of the NYC.
They,
I mean,
they, they acted like it. I can tell you that. They
I
thought that
mean,
home and home.
just like the Fugees are culturally part of NYC, even though you know, New Jersey is distinct, obviously, right?
Yeah, but
But
that's
you
right
know,
there. Yeah.
yeah, we're all. I mean, Yonkers is closer to Harlem than even than Jersey is.
Oh, it is. I
Um,
didn't know that. Okay.
yeah. I mean, honestly, once you get out of the Bronx, you're going north. You're gonna be running into the Yonkers.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
the
thought for
reality.
some reason I thought it was closer to like Norwalk, Stanford,
Uh,
like
you
White
did you
Plains,
start getting to Westchester and
Mount
White
Vernon.
Plains,
Not White Plains. I'm
but
sorry, Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon. Well, yeah, Mount Vernon, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, but that's all close. I mean, you just it's just north of Bronx, man. It's just folks who got to go to certain middle class to
Oh
upper
yeah,
middle
I
class
used to live in
areas.
I used to live in Norwalk. Don't forget that I worked in Stanford. So
Okay,
I used to be in
so
Mount Vernon all the time. It was right there.
okay, yeah, money earning Mount Vernon,
And
as
the
people
other
would
Mount
call it.
Vernon, yeah,
Mon, mon, mon,
that's a
mon-
look. That big man influenced my life, bro.
okay, I didn't
Heavy
even
D as a
realize that you.
rapper.
Who's this?
Heavy D as a rapper.
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely, man. Heavy D, incredible, incredible rapper too.
Yeah.
And again, another loss, man. Serious loss. Again, I'm going off topic completely, but it's hit my mind because I was thinking about it a little bit earlier when I was talking about my roots. The one thing I did not mention about my musical roots that it's just terrible for me not to mention this is house music because from 1983 to about 1991, being from northern New Jersey, being in my age group, I mean, hip hop was here, but house music was like right here. Club music was right here in northern New Jersey. And it's an interesting interplay between northern New Jersey, Detroit, and Chicago. Chicago really being the home of house music, but northern New Jersey having an incredible position as like the home of club music, which is a very close cousin to house music, and then Detroit having that house music tradition as well, and those three areas kind of connecting to each other back in the day. And I know that house music has a different connotation now, in terms of what the younger people see house music is in its current incarnation. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the impact of places like Zanzibar, Newark, New Jersey, Club 88 in East Orange, New Jersey, and
East Orange.
in those areas that I used to frequent back in the day. Not to mention, Paradise Garage in New York City, Club. Was another one? I can't think of the other one that was based on the Paradise Garage that was in the city. But those are places that I have to mention as well. So I had to throw that in there. But
Now you know, you know, it's going to be interesting though because it's going to test you in your South Florida music style, right? So there's something now
okay,
called New Jersey Club Mix, and it's derivative of that New Jersey house, right? Like you were saying, Detroit, Chicago. I think there's a little bit of a closer battle as who really owns house, but
yeah,
Detroit,
and
Chicago,
Baltimore now,
Baltimore,
Baltimore. I mean,
Baltimore,
I mean, a lot of current New Jersey quote unquote house music now is based on the Baltimore sound as
right?
well.
But they
So
got something called New Jersey Club Mix, and it sounds a lot like what we call juke music here in South Florida, which is a
okay,
Miami-based music, to the point
yep,
where those
yep,
artists perform together a lot. The juke
yep,
artists, yeah, peanut butter jelly song, that kind of stuff. That's that
yep.
New Jersey Club
It
Mix.
is
It's pretty
interesting to
interesting.
hear that because I'll be honest with you, that music is so different than anything else that was going on in New Jersey in my day. But it is representative of what's happening there now. Absolutely, absolutely. It's
Interesting.
very interesting to hear that, to see that dynamic kind of play out. But I did not realize that because I can definitely hear when I was listening because there was a documentary that they did recently on New Jersey house music and its connection to Baltimore in particular. And listening to that, I could see and hear how it would be connected to South Florida music. Absolutely.
Absolutely, it's interesting. We're all,
Yeah.
we're all connected by the same thing, right? And we just have these derivations. But one of the things that
Hmm.
really needs to be explored more is that, right? The intersections of those different regions. But like you were saying earlier,
Yeah.
the distinctiveness of those regions. How
Yeah.
Houston doesn't sound like what you got out of New Orleans. New Orleans didn't sound like Florida. Florida didn't sound like Georgia. There are
Right.
overlaps, of course.
Right.
The boroughs, some of the boroughs sounded different from each other for a while there, right? The way they
Oh,
were pronounced.
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. Yep.
Northern Cali, Southern Cali, Detroit, Midwest, chopper music. I love choppers. I love these chopper rappers. That's all out of the
Yeah.
Midwest. Everybody's doing it
Yeah.
now, but I found out it's really out of New York. Of course,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't know Jigga was a chopper back in the day. He was.
Yeah, no, no, and then the other thing you'll find is that a lot of the artists that were the biggest ones out of a certain regions, you realize that they have some connection to New York City in some shape or form as well. So, oftentimes Ti spent summers in New York City, right? And it's
Definitely
just
an
amazing.
influence.
And there's another couple of a few artists like that. But then that's how you see how this everything's kind of gets mixed up a little bit. And
Right.
but it's
I mean,
but
think about Miami music, right? You mentioned Luke earlier, but Luke gets all the credit because he was the guy who did a lot of talking. But Luke was local promoter of what we call DJs. They would bring out speakers and they would play music at parks. He saw a talented group on California and brought them to the East Coast. That was Two Live Crew. It was two guys, Mr. Mix, Kyle
mhm,
Hobbs, and them two military guys, and Fresh Kid Ice. They had nothing to do with Luke. Their sound was already developed. The
right,
lyrical switched to a little more vulgarity, but the sound was there. Mr. Mix
right,
is an exquisite producer. But that's California.
right.
But now it's turned into Miami. So all of us were
Yep,
raised on that, and it turned
yep,
into a sound, right?
yep,
So of
yep.
course there's
Although I always say that a lot of that sound was based on what you heard in the early '80s with like Soul Sonic Force.
oh,
Um,
absolutely. That was
and
fun. That's a question. That's
yep, yep,
but I will go one further. If you go back to the original Two Live Crew, they were at the same time. They were back with Egyptian Lover when they were in California. They had a song
yeah.
called Beatbox that you may have not heard, but I think it's 1982. But they were
Oh,
back with Soul Sonic Force, Cybertron, some of the other ones,
mhm.
the Jam on It guys, Nucleus,
Yeah,
Egyptian
yep,
Lover. They were all making the same stuff, and Luke
yep,
grabbed them and
yep,
kind of molded into what they became, or let it evolve into
yep.
what it became.
No, no,
That was quick.
absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, we got our hour in. That went smooth and went quick. My God. But so we're gonna tweak, format a little bit. We probably did too many topics in one show,
Oh
frankly.
yeah, I'm bad. You gotta reel
Um,
me
no, no, it wasn't you. I think I set the stage for it. But with that said, I appreciate you, my brother. We've been having these discussions for a very long time, and we just finally decided to put it on wax. So
in.
there you
So
have
this
it.
was fun, man. Let me know how I can share
Yeah.
this. If it's okay, I'm gonna share this with some of my people
Oh,
because this is
absolutely,
good
absolutely.
stuff.
What I'll do is, man, I'll send it out to you, and obviously we're gonna have it available for folks as well. We appreciate you guys to the extent that we have folks listening right now or listening in the future. We appreciate you, and we appreciate any sort of contributions you want to make to what we're saying or how we saying it. All right,
See you
appreciate y'all.
soon.
All
All
right,
right.
later.